something in the air, the dream of life in love, with minds that rest in prayer, sparking joy we're in awe. No matter where your path has been or time will somehow flies, like souls will come home again, true friendship ever thrives. Is this where the magic happens? Can you feel the hearts revealed right now in you and me? The secret is wherever we are. There's something in a smile that can turn a day around. Moments so worthwhile when we find common ground. No matter what the day might bring, right here we can align, knowing that we will be seen as perfect, whole, divine. This is where the magic happens. Let's feel all the hearts, from close to me and me to you. The secret is wherever we are. So meet me where the magic happens, feeling all the hearts ignited now in you and me. The secret is wherever, the secret is whenever, the secret is together we are.
Welcome. We are delighted to have you with us today. CSL St. George, Utah. Good morning. We are an open, loving, and inclusive community that supports thinking creatively and living a deeply spiritual life. Our vision is a world that works for everyone. Today's service team, well, we have our tech is Bill Smith. Thank you so much, Bill. I am your host, Star Sterrett. I am a religious science practitioner. There is also Alan Stanley, our wonderful music director today, and Sue Fulmer is going to do our reading. And then I have a special guest today, Dr. Reverend Raymont Anderson. I'm so happy. Okay, here we go. Take it away, Alan.
Thank you, Star. Hello, everyone. Wonderful day to you all. So this is a song I just ran across last week, sung by Jennifer Russell. I just discovered her. She's wonderful. If you ever get a chance, look her up. She's got some great stuff. But I'll sing along. We'll sing a little bit, and then I believe Star's going to come back off of the invocation, and then we'll finish it out. So sing along, hum along, or just relax. Everywhere I am is holy ground, for I walk with God. Everywhere I am is holy ground, for the power and the presence of sweet spirit makes my path gentle and easy. Gentle, easy. Everywhere I am is holy ground, and I live in love. Everywhere I am is holy ground, for the power and the presence of sweet spirit makes my path gentle and easy. Gentle, easy.
Thank you. Right here and right now, I'd like to invite you to just relax, center yourself into the presence of the now moment. And from this place, I know there is only one mind. That mind is perfect. That mind is my mind now. And because I know this for myself, I know this for each and every person listening to this. Each one who is searching knows that right here, right now, that presence is available. And so in that presence, there is a great desire for surrender, for letting go, for letting in this divine wisdom, this divine knowing, this gentle and beautiful presence that is ever present. And so knowing this, I am deeply gratified. I am in a state of beautiful acceptance that my gratitude is accepted. And so I release it into the law, that law that says yes, that serves love, that always says yes. And I am knowing that my good is right here and right now, and I am blessed, as is each and every one present this day, and anyone who listens further. So I release it into the law, knowing it is already accomplished, taking all the worry and all the questioning out of my being. I know it is done, as together we say yes, and so it is.
So it is. Thank you, Star. Everywhere I stand is holy ground, and I stand in peace. Everywhere I stand is holy ground, for the power and the presence of pure spirit makes my life gentle and easy. Gentle, easy. Everywhere I stand is holy ground, and I dance in joy. Everywhere I am is holy ground, for the power and the presence of sweet spirit makes my life gentle and easy. Gentle, easy. Everywhere I am is holy ground, and I tread with thee. Everywhere I am is holy ground, for the power and the presence of your spirit makes my life gentle and easy. Gentle, easy. Gentle, easy. I'd like to welcome Sue Fulmer in to offer our reading for today.
Thank you. Gentle and easy. Love that. I'm taking my remarks today from the current Science of Mind magazine, a short article by Molly Kate Brown. Within the integrated whole being that we are, we have parts that take up varying degrees of space at different times. These parts often originate in our formative years, if not before. One part may have a terrible fear of rejection. Another part may feel stupid. There might be a part afraid to rock the boat because of what it may have meant for that part's age and development. Depending on what we've lived through, there may be parts of us that believe something is wrong with me. I am bad, or I am mean. So it makes absolute sense that depending on how loud those voices are and how much room they take up, being vulnerable would feel terrifying. What we pay attention to grows. Most of us also have a part that knows our goodness, worth, connection, wisdom, and love. In fact, this part may also feel a sense of the mystery and connection to where we all originated. As much as possible, give that voice more airtime. We can allow this wise voice to parent the other parts, letting us safely feel their terror, sheepishness, and fear. It is a great act of courage to feel the discomfort and fear and be vulnerable anyway. This is how the either or becomes the and. This is how we cultivate the heartfelt intimacy and connection that are the brilliant flowers in the garden of life. I love it. Don't you? Have a good week.
I love it too, Sue. Great choice. Now I can hear you singing along to cover when I forget the words. So jump right in there. You know there's a light that blows by the front door. Don't forget the keys under the mat. When your childhood stars shine, always stay humble and kind. Go to church as your mom says to. Visit grandpa every chance that you can. It won't be wasted time. Always stay humble and kind. Hold the door, say please, say thank you. Don't steal, don't rob, and don't lie. I know you've got mountains to climb, but always stay humble and kind. When the dreams you're dreaming come to you, when the work you put in's realized, let yourself feel the pride. Always stay humble and kind. Don't expect a free ride from no one. Don't hold a grudge or a chip, and here's why. Bitterness keeps you from flying. Always stay humble and kind. Know the difference between someone loving and sleeping with someone you love. I love you ain't no pickup line. Always stay humble and kind. Hold the door, say please, say thank you. Don't steal, don't cheat, don't lie. I know you got mountains to climb, but always stay humble and kind. When the dreams you're dreaming come to you, when the work you put in's realized, let yourself feel the pride, but always stay humble and kind. When it's hot, eat a root beer popsicle. Shut off the AC and roll the windows down. Let that summer sunshine always stay humble and kind. Don't take for granted the love this life gives you. When you get where you're going, don't forget, turn around. Help the next one in line. Always stay humble and kind. Hold the door, say please, say thank you. Don't steal, don't cheat, don't lie. I know you got mountains to climb, but always stay humble and kind. When the dreams you're dreaming come to you, when the work you put in's realized, let yourself feel the pride, but always stay humble and kind.
Ah, that's perfect, Alan.
Thank you,
Perfect
Star.
remembrance. That's beautiful. Thank you. Okay, I would like to talk about our guest speaker. It's on our global theme is living out loud, and April is the power of vulnerability. Today's talk is about letting go and letting in. And this guest speaker that I want to talk to you about today is Dr. Reverend Raymont Anderson, and he's an ordained Centers for Spiritual Living minister and serves as the founding minister and the spiritual director of the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, which is an affiliated Center for Spiritual Living Teaching Center. He brings his years of being an artist, a performer, an educator, a lover of comics and film to all areas of his life and ministry. He is frequently sought after as a guest minister speaker at various centers for spiritual living, as well as Unity churches. In addition, his work in New Thought and specifically CSL, he teaches workshops related to American Sign Language, radical self-care, and living with purpose. He is also a professional visual artist, performing arts artist, author, and former public school teacher, a college professor, and American Sign Language interpreter. When he's not teaching, speaking, writing, creating, etc., he's spending time with family, which includes harassing and loving his amazing grandkids. Welcome, Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson.
Thank you so very much, Star. Thank you. Thank you. And to the entire CSL St. George family and community, thank you all so much. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Star. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Spirit, for showing up as these amazing individuals who are doing this great and amazing work. So, y'all ready to get vulnerable? If y'all ready, we're gonna jump on in, right? So, because this is one of those areas See, I love the idea of words because we can say a word and, for example, positive. If I use the word, I say the word positive. Normally, we use it as though that word is something good. And yet, through this whole era of COVID, if someone tested COVID positive, ooh, so in that reference, it is not good, quote unquote. Words are this amazing thing, and we are invited to steward them more effectively. So, right here, right now, this idea of vulnerability, we often think of vulnerability as a thing to avoid rather than what does vulnerability mean to me on an individual level, understanding that when I explore my own self-reflection, when I explore and allow all parts of myself, all, because see, there are parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily like or enjoy, and we try to segment them away or Tupperware them away and hide them. That's why we have skeletons in closets and all of the phrases that we reference the things that we are guilty, ashamed of, etc. And here we are at this juncture of being vulnerable, where all of that stuff, we are being invited to bring it in as integral parts of who and what we are, so that on an individual level, we then learn how to expand into the collective. So when we learn to make friends with all parts of ourselves, let's say that again, all parts of ourselves, the more we are able to step into this experience of being able to bring all of these aspects of God, all of these aspects of spirit in more and more and more expansive ways into our own lives and into the greater, where we now give others, by the space we create, we now give others the power, the opportunity to also be vulnerable, to expand, to stretch, to love, to shine, and to impact the collective consciousness. Now, as we go through this, one of the things that I would like us to do is ask these questions of yourself. What does this that Reverend Ray is talking about, what does it have to do with me? What does vulnerability have to do with me? What is the invitation for me to shift, to grow, to evolve? How will I engage and practice this consciousness, this idea of being vulnerable? And then have conversations with others about all of this. What are your thoughts? What are your concerns? What are some aha moments that you had? What are further questions that you have? Because the more we engage in conversation, the more we come together as community, because as I often remind people, communication, cooperation, and collaboration is what creates community. And technically, community is what it means to be in relationship. And if we're in relationship, then we must converse. So, vulnerability. According to Havelock Ellis, the art, or all the art of living, lies in this fine mingling of being able to let go and holding on or letting in. Now, we know that if I were to say, okay, I want everybody to take a nice deep breath and hold it for 15 minutes. You said, what now? Hold what for? How? That's an awfully long holding of breath. Because we understand that breathing is the fine line of letting breath in and letting breath out, and then doing it again. We understand that when it comes to breathing. Do we understand that when it comes to love? Let love in, but also share it. Photosynthesis, let light in. That's what plants do. They let the light in and then they bloom, and in essence are letting the expression of the light out. So our invitation is to do this process far more frequently and consciously with all aspects of our lives, not just the parts that we politely, neatly, comfortably want to engage the practice, but to do it all the time, as often as possible, just like breathing, as often as possible, just like eating and going to the restroom, to eliminate, letting in, let it nourish, and then surrender and let it go. It's the same thing we do with everything. I have words. You speak to me, I let them in. Even if it's signed, you sign and I let it in. I process it, and then I communicate with you. I let the words out. We understand this. Now we are invited to practice it even more diligently, especially when it comes to, you've heard the song, I love myself so much, so that I let, you heard it. Did you ever hear the version that says, I hate myself so much, and hating me hates you too, right? The negative self-talk, quote unquote, negative self-talk that we have, which I generally don't use the word concept negative. The non-life affirming dialogue that we have with ourselves becomes the non-life affirming dialogue and conversations that we have with others. Many of us do not like ourselves, which becomes non-life affirming self-talk, which becomes non-life affirming ways of living, moving, and having our being. And we've often heard the quotes, you have the power of life and death in your tongue, in your words, in the manner in which you communicate. So if that's in fact what we believe, how are we stewarding our words? Are we stewarding them masterfully? You know, like a Toni Morrison, like a Maya Angelou, like a William Shakespeare. Are we stewarding our words, carefully selecting, consciously choosing what it is that we want to communicate, not just externally, but also internally? What did Starr say during that opening prayer? The law says yes. The law says yes, always. So whether we say words externally or not, even in our thoughts or prayers, and we are always praying, the law is always saying yes. Do we want the law to continue saying yes to those thoughts, those words, criticism, judgment, self-condemnation, self-loathing, etc.? Because as I said again, they become the external demonstration. Dr. Holmes says, always there is an inner quiet, persistent confidence. An inner quiet, note, the still small voice of God is neither small nor technically still when we reference it does not move. For linguistic convenience, what we are saying is, because of all the noise that is going on about us, we tend to tone out the voice, quote unquote, the voice of spirit, intuition, that knowing. So when it says quiet, the invitation is, am I really paying attention and listening? But once again, Dr. Holmes says, always there is an inner, quiet, persistent confidence, a non-resistant but complete acceptance, an inward flow with the stream of life, knowing that it carries me safely, vulnerable, knowing that it carries me safely and surely to my destination. Certainty, it carries me to my desired experience, my desired outcome, to the desired conditions, and the accomplishment of every good / life-affirming expression and purpose. Always. Not on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays between the hours of 12 and 3. Always this is present. The invitation is to make use of it more frequently, on a daily basis, moment by moment, thought by thought. Breathe. Now, speaking of self-loathing, etc. There was a time when I weighed a lot more than I currently weigh, and I did not like myself, and I often criticized and condemned myself. And in 3 of these photos, I was a slightly heavier version of me. And yet my invitation, which helped me to come into a far healthier space of greater health and well-being with blood pressure, cholesterol, etc., was understanding when Robert Frost says that the secret sits in the center, sits in the middle, and knows. We dance round a ring and suppose, but the secret sits in the center, in the middle, and knows. Well, wait. In the middle, a circle, circumference nowhere, center everywhere, God. Right where you are, God. Nothing you could do to make you un-God, un-spirit, un-universe. You are it. Individualized and incarnating itself as you. So when we say, seek ye first the kingdom of, and all else will be added, know that you are this divine incarnation of, and that which you desire and deserve will begin to manifest. People will say, because we oftentimes do this, look here and look there, take this workshop and read this book and that, and we're looking and looking and looking outside of ourselves for that which is right here where we are. There is no becoming more spiritual. You are it right now. What you're invited to do is to accept, let it in. Let it in. Let the truth of your being be what it already is. Because in order to truly seek and to truly understand and to live as this understanding, to be it, we must practice courage. Because in a world where others are going to try to get us to be something else, do something else, live some other way, it takes courage to be your authentic divine self. And this is a courage that recognizes what needs to be let go of, and a courage that lets go of it. A courage that recognizes what needs to be received, embraced, embodied, and accepted. And a courage that says, I'm doing it. Breathe. Because this kind of courage is a courage that lives this. Science of mind and spirit is a way of life. Living it. Breathe. Because living it means being vulnerable, being willing to make mistakes. Like when Alan is singing a song, I would venture to say that at some point in his life, you're learning to, if he handed me the guitar, it would happen far more often, and I would be able to give you the perfect example of Ray trying to do a chord, but his hands just don't want to work the way they're supposed to work to try to, okay, forget it, right? Like in this process of becoming a master musician that he is, you have to be willing to hit the wrong note, strum the wrong chord. In order for Star to be a master at this thing called being a practitioner, you have to be willing to make a mistake. Well, what I meant to say was, you have to be willing to make a mistake and not let your quote unquote prayer be perfect, even though it already is. Whatever is said, it's perfect, right? When Sue is reading whatever the reading is, or in the becoming a practitioner, being willing to, oh, did I just read that line twice? Being willing to make a mistake, but it's not a mistake. It simply is. And what do? We learn, we grow, we evolve, we shift, and we do it again. Breathe, because ultimately this idea of being vulnerable means being authentic. And part of being authentic is recognizing when Dr. Holmes says, whatever is true of God is true about your life, true about you. And since there is only one life, and that life is God. And since there is only that which God is, there are not 2, 4, 8. There is only one. Whatever is true about God is true about you. Whatever is true about the universe is true about you. Living authentically is understanding that and living it. See, we can understand it here intellectually. Dr. Holmes reminds us in other places, one of the issues, my paraphrase, one of the issues is we theorize so much, we think so much, but we practice not enough. This idea, do you practice the understanding and the awareness that whatever is true about God is true about yourself? Because as Dr. Troward says, the law of flotation, stuttered a word, vulnerability. The law of flotation was not discovered by contemplating the sinking of things. Let's see, how exactly do we sink things? Ray, we're supposed to be figuring out how to float. Yes, I know, but I'm thinking about sinking stuff. But we're trying to make things float. Yes, I understand that, but I'm focusing on the law of flotation was not discovered by contemplating how and why things sink, but by contemplating how and why things float. Things that floated naturally, and then asking, why does that do that? What is it about the qualities that cause it to do that? The law of embodying the divine is not discovered, does not become by debating and discussing the failures of, the shames and guilts of, the traumas of. See, we can acknowledge and recognize, pause for a second. See, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer in December, and it's one thing to receive these words, and it's a completely different thing to become obsessed and only focus on, rather than immediately go into, that's the diagnosis. Now, what is mine to do? How do I anchor in the truth of my being while navigating this? Both and, not either or, both and. To be open at the top and open at the bottom. To embody the divine. Because if you want something that you have never had, you must be willing to be something you have never been, to do something you have never done. And even though Thomas Jefferson owned slaves and was anti-slavery, talk about paradox, if you want something that whatever it is, you want it, are you willing to change who you are? Are you willing to change how you show up? Because if you want something, the first thing you have to be willing to do, able to do, is identify what is it that I want to experience individually. What do I want us as a community, CSL St. George, what do I want us as a community to experience? What do I, as a community, CSL, want us to experience? What do I, as a citizen of the United States of America, want the United States of America to, as a citizen of Earth, follow what I'm saying. What is it that you want to experience? Because as Dr. Phil reminds us, you have to name it to claim it. You have to be clear. When a practitioner says, and so it is, there has to be, well, what am I, and so it ising? What am I giving my amen to? What is it that I'm declaring and acknowledging is my experience? That means I have to know from the end, not the beginning. The beginning is the end. What is the desired experience? Love, joy, peace on earth, goodwill towards all, ecological safety for the planet, tending to Mother Earth. What is it that I desire to experience? And then put it into practice. But the question becomes, are we doing the same thing but expecting somehow, for some reason, expecting different results? James Brown sings a song about a dull knife. You keep on doing the same thing, thinking there's something doesn't work that way. When we take classes in Science of Mind and Spirit, when we go to a practitioner for a prac session, when we do any of our spiritual practices, what we are doing is honing the knife. We are honing our consciousness so that we are better able to slice through any of the discord, disillusionment, all of these guilt, shame, all of this stuff to get to the truth of our being. Because when we are at the truth of our being, we are far more empowered and able to live as it, not just think it, but live as it. So once again, Do we know what it is that we want to experience? And are we willing to be vulnerable enough to shift whatever needs to be shifted, to surrender and let go whatever needs to be let go of? Old beliefs about God, old beliefs about ourselves, let it go and let in a new belief about God, a new belief about ourselves. Which brings us to a spiritual practice called visioning. We've visioned for communities. We've visioned for centers. We've visioned for the organization. How often have you visioned for yourself? Do you know what that is? Do you know what visioning is? If not, I invite you to speak to your minister, Reverend Joe. I invite you to speak to any of your practitioners. I invite you to engage in the conversation to be able to identify, how do I vision for my life? There's a passage in the Bible that says, when the people have no vision, they perish. We are invited to have a greater vision of ourselves. And when we understand that we are God, we are the receptive inflow and outflow of the divine. We are it. And as Eric Butterworth says, I am receptive to the inflow and the outpouring of the universe. Yeah, but are you really? Are you really? Because it's easy to say that we are. But how would you know if you truly are or not? Well, one great and powerful way is look at your mental equivalence. Because your mental equivalence will show you what your evidenced experience is. Now, be mindful that you can have a mental equivalent of equity and justice and still exist within the collective consciousness whose mental equivalent is trauma, sexism, racism, homophobia, othering, xenophobia. Your collective consciousness and its collective consciousness need not be in alignment. When you shift your mental equivalent and it changes how you show up, Gandhi, and it changes how you show up, Howard Thurman, and it changes how you show up, Ernest Holmes, and it changes how you show up, Dr. King, how you show up, Mother Teresa, how you show up, and your consciousness, then there is only one mind, and that mind is God, and that mind is the mind you use right now. And as each of us comes together in community and shifts our consciousness, shifts our mental equivalence, we shift the individual experience and the collective experience. Breathe. Now, mental equivalence. When I say that, what am I referring to? What are the thoughts you are thinking? What are the words you use to communicate, whether that's verbal, via text, via Facebook meme, doesn't matter. How are you communicating? What are the words? What do they mean? What are your emotions and feelings at any given moment? Oftentimes we'll say things like, hey, Star, how are you today? Or Star will ask me, hey, Reverend Ray, how are you today? Can't complain. To which Star says, Reverend Ray, that is not an emotion, nor is it a feeling. You are giving me a statement that does not completely answer my question. You have basically, because it doesn't answer the question, how are you feeling today? How are you today? Thank you, Star, for clarifying that. I wasn't thinking in terms of that. Today, I feel joyful and grateful. And you? Likewise, I am steeped in the magnificence of God as me. That's what I'm saying, Star. Amen to that. And so it is, right? What are your emotions? What are your feelings? And then, based upon all of this, what is it causing you to do in the world? Because when these are aligned, and they're always aligned to something, it affects how our experiences show up. It changes and shifts whatever is going on externally. So if you want something new in your experience, backtrack it. What are my thoughts? What are my words? What are my emotions and feelings? And what are the actions that I am engaged in? And how are they showing up? If I were to ask you, breathe on this one. Because we often talk about friends and friendship. But if I ask, do you have a friendship with yourself? Do you love yourself? I love myself so much so that I can love you so much. To give you the safe space and the courageous space to love yourself so much that now you are able to love others and make this contagion of love and light available to all. Do you love yourself so much to not criticize yourself, to not judge yourself, to not guilt or shame yourself? Are you that kind of friend to yourself? If not, are you willing to let it in by letting go of whatever is the opposite of being a friend? Breathe. Key Brown says, when we are vulnerable, I believe we are our truest selves. When we are vulnerable, our truest selves. Emotion is all about vulnerability. And that is why, in the cheesiest sense, it is so beautiful. Well, let's remix. Remember, I said words are powerful. Remix. In the most powerful sense, it is beautiful. It's not cheesy, it's powerful. In the most powerful sense, it is beautiful to understand that this vulnerability gives us the space to be our true, authentic, and divine selves. Madeline L'Engle reminds us, when we were children, we used to think that somehow when we grew up, we would never be afraid, we would never need to be vulnerable, we would have the power. But then we grew up, and now we understand that growing up and being a grown-up means to accept our vulnerability, because being alive is being vulnerable. And it is in that space that we are more powerful. Think about the civil rights movement and the people who marched across the Pettus Bridge. They were being extremely vulnerable to the violence of many of the officers at the other side of the bridge, and yet they marched on anyway. How many people took buses to Selma, to Montgomery, to Mississippi to register people to vote, knowing that their buses could be attacked, knowing that they could be assassinated, and yet they did it anyway? Vulnerability. There is power in vulnerability. And our invitation is right here and right now to shift the collective consciousness so powerfully that we completely eradicate and eliminate that kind of hatred, that kind of racism, sexism, homophobia, etc. But we must be vulnerable enough to do it. In this concept of a world that works for all, it requires us to be vulnerable, to be of nurturing support to others, to help others remember the truth of their being. Because it is only by being united that we thrive. It is only in being in community that love truly shifts the collective consciousness and healing occurs. We say there is nothing that needs to be healed, only truth to be revealed. Being in community, communion, communication, a unity of communication, a unity of community, a unity of collaborative relationship anchored and steeped in spiritual principle, shifts and changes the consciousness of creation. Once again, there is only one mind, and that mind is God. And that mind is your mind now. Whatever happens in one space of the mind of God ripples throughout all of the mind of God. Dr. Holmes reminds us, unless we become a living embodiment of love, we have no way to say to someone else that God is love. We are invited to embody it, to embody peace, to embody vulnerability, safety, comfort, healing. Embody it, be it. Don't just talk about it. Don't even just practice it. Be it. Dr. Holmes says in closing, for the only God you and I will ever know. Woo, hold up, Uncle Ernie. For the only God you and I will ever know is the one that we embody. Never forget that. Never forget that. It is about relationship. As I embody God and I create the space that gives others in the community the understanding, the awareness, and the availability to let go of an anthropomorphic God, to let in the embodiment of the divine, then we are truly doing the work of spirit. Then we are creating and crafting truly a world that works for all. Breathe as we anchor into prayer. Simply breathing, recognizing that we cannot rebreathe yesterday's breath. We cannot pre-breathe tomorrow's breath. We can't save a breath for a rainy day. Only this breath right here, this inhalation and this exhalation, we breathe. This breath anchors us right here and right now. And what we are anchoring to is the realization and the understanding that this breath, this divine and holy Ruach Elohim, is the breath of God breathing itself, because there is no separation between that which does the breathing, the breath itself, and the one being breathed. There is only one. And from this now present awareness being breathed by the very breath of life, I speak what I know. I know right here and right now that God is, love is, peace and power is, truth is. The law says yes. That means every thought, every word that this beloved community is engaged in, and the law says yes, this beloved community called CSL St. George isn't simply living in answered prayer, they are living as answered prayer. To that I say amen. I say amen to each person gathered today, watching, whether watching live or watching later. Your life is your amen. The embodiment of the divine right here, right now. Your thoughts, God's thoughts, your words, God's words, your emotions and feelings, the way the divine emotes and feels, and your actions are the ways in which God acts in the world. The ways in which God walks the walk and shows up as a 21st century new thought, Good Samaritan. The law says yes. It says yes from the very first song sung. It says yes through the reading, yes through the prayers, yes through all of the tech stuff that Bill is doing in the background. It says yes to all of this. Yes to everyone watching. Yes to Reverend Joe and the magnificent work that he is doing. Yes, yes, and yes. And so I touch and agree to this magnificence and this power and this presence that says this, let go. This, let in. And I breathe, and I am breathed. For I am breath itself, and what is true about me is true about each and every one of us, the divine, right here, right now. The law says yes. And so it is. Amen. Amen.
Wow, I just love that. And breathe throughout your whole entire talk, because I knew that that breath was the one that just communicated everything.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Star.
I'll see you at Zoom afterwards.
Yes, yes, I will be there.
Perfect. All right. Okay, everyone. We have a few announcements. We have Community Care Circle, 435-893-6702. Please call if you're wanting any community care. Prayer requests are at prayer@cslstgeorge.org. Our Zoom conversation is at noon. First in-person service, woohoo, is May 14th, Mother's Day. So I'm looking forward to seeing y'all. Okay, our tithes and offerings, your generous support is appreciated. We are getting there, and all of your gifts and honorings are appreciated so much. You can give with Zelle, which I do, which is an awesome, really easy way to give. And or you can go through PayPal or on our website. You can do this QR code over here. You can give by mail. There's so many ways to give. God just gives everywhere. Our upcoming Sunday is going to be our own Reverend Joe Kovach, and he is going to be giving a talk on, I believe, I can't read it. I'm sorry. It's pre-recorded. That's right. We're going to pre-record it. Okay. We're going to pre-record that one on the 19th, and we'll see you on the 23rd. We will be at that center fixing it up and making it look like how we're going to do it, kind of a dress rehearsal, but probably give you a taste of it that day. And on the 30th, all of our practitioners are going to be doing the Power and Possibility talk. And that is already interesting. And we are honored to be able to do this. Okay, we're going to bring everybody back in. Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
It is this thing called life.
Life is in my mind. Life is in my body. Life is in all that I do.
I am it. I embrace it. And I share it.
Just the way that it is.
And just the way that it is becoming.
Thank you, live.
Woo-hoo.
All right.